Hello everybody, those who've been watching the channel recently will know I've been on the hunt for a replacement to my BMW 130i. A very entertaining car and a faithful companion, in fact the only car I've ever owned twice. But sadly, for a few different reasons, it had to go and I needed something to replace it. Something to take on the sort of daily duties, the other role on my driveway, the car that can do the things none of the rest can. So, what did I need? Well, I needed something that was bigger than the 130. I wanted something which was going to be very comfortable for long distances, but equally, when I found a nice road, still fun and something that you could enjoy some bends in. I didn't really want a big, massive car like an S-Class, 7 Series or something like that, but I also had to be careful because I know what I'm like. When I start browsing the classifieds, I'll look at the cars that I should be buying, and then 10 minutes later I'll be looking at something wildly inappropriate. The fact that I didn't go and buy an Aston Martin DB9 Volante is a minor miracle. So what did I get? Well, if you want something that can do both the daily duty and fun stuff in equal measure, to me there's one brand that really probably does it better than anyone else. That's Jaguar. As part of my Next Daily Driver series, I was blown away by the Jaguar XF. I drove the SV8 version with the old 4.2 litre engine, and after that I thought, you know what, this is the one. This is my next car. So I started looking at XFRs, but unfortunately, all the ones I found that I wanted were either sold, had dubious dodgy histories, or just no history at all, and a lot of them didn't have some of the features I really needed in a car, like for example, a sunroof. So instead I started thinking of alternatives, and I realised, what about the XJ? The latest, the last XJ is a fabulous thing. A bit of an ugly looking car, but I've got pretty cars on the driveway already. That didn't bother me too much. They've got great performance, lots of toys, and they are a pretty good all-rounder. So that's what I bought. I got an XJR. This XJR. But there were some problems. Unfortunately, there were just a few things wrong with the car, and they weren't particularly major, but they were enough that I wasn't really very happy with the price I'd paid, and the dealer wasn't very helpful in terms of trying to rectify the issues either. I hadn't got a penny discount from this car, and I'd paid a really good price for it, with the hope being that although it was over my initial budget, that would mean I didn't need to do anything to it. The minute I realised that the car would need £1,000 or more spent on it immediately, I just thought, no, sod this. So I was back to the drawing board immediately, and I got thinking what else was out there. I did look at other XJs, I looked at other XFs, and then something else cropped up. Perhaps the only real-world, genuine alternative to a Jaguar XJR, or at least the only one that interests me. Yeah, I bought a Maserati, specifically a 2010 Maserati Quattroporte Sport GTS, not entirely unlike the one that I reviewed recently. I would have bought that actual car because it was going up for sale, but I just can't do silver. So what exactly is this? Well, this is part of the 5th generation of Quattroporte that was in production from 2003 until 2012. The Sport GTS is one of the sort of run-out special editions and had a few little extras. So rather than Maserati's troublesome and not particularly good Skyhook adaptive dampers, this has got single fixed rate Bilsteins on it, which sit a little bit lower than stock. That means it's just a little bit keener to turn in and a touch more reliable as well. Up front, you have a Ferrari derived and built 4.7 litre naturally aspirated V8, making here 440 metric horsepower. Not particularly torquey, but it does also make just about the best noise in the business. That is paired to a ZF 6-speed gearbox. The Quattroporte of this generation was offered with 2 gearboxes. You had the ZF 6-speed, which came in later, but they originally debuted with the Duo Select, which is Maserati's way of saying a Ferrari-style F1 gearbox. In fact, an extremely close relative of Ferrari's F1 box. Those were not really much loved. The ZF is by far the better option to have, and the Sport GTS only came with that. It also has some sort of black trim on it rather than the usual chrome, and at the back dual oval tailpipes, indicating the fact this has the Sport GTS exhaust, which is absolutely glorious. You hit sport mode, it opens the valves, and it's just wondrous. This particular car is finished in what Maserati call Nero Carbonio. Now, Nero is the Italian for black, and this is not black at all. This is what I'm going to call Grigio AF. What did lure me to this specific car though, other than the fact at the time I was looking it was pretty much the only Sport GTS on sale, is the interior. Now, it's not my perfect specification, but it is damn close. There is leather in here and Alcantara. People that watch the channel will know that I hate Alcantara, but luckily there's not too much of it and you don't really have to touch a lot of it. I love the shapes in here, and more than that, check out this steering wheel. Yep, that's carbon fibre. This was not standard, although much of the rest of it was. It's not actually carbon fibre, it's something called Titan Tex. I don't know how different that really is, but it looks pretty cool anyway. I don't even mind the light headlining because it hides the fact there's not an awful lot of headroom in here. Critically though, there is much more room than in the 1 Series. In fact, it feels a bit roomier than the Jaguar too. It's got a sunroof, which was an essential, and there's lots of touches in this car that make me really appreciate it for what it is. At the time, Maserati were actually owned chiefly by Ferrari, and this was a car more or less made under Ferrari's watchful gaze. So you've got lots of things like these nice big shift paddles that you've got in the Sport GTS. Little switches here, which are very clearly also the same as you'd find in a Ferrari. These classic Maserati blue dials. Okay, pretty basic noughties infotainment, but that's easily upgraded with Android Auto, and I'm going to be doing that in a future video. You've got these little drilled pedals down here, and although these seats are not the best, they don't really support you very well, they are comfortable, they don't even have heating in them, but they're okay for now. The reason you'll struggle to find a car like this on the second-hand market is pretty simple. They never sold very many in the first place. Only 153 Sport GTS were ever delivered to the UK market, and it was exclusively the Sport GTS that I wanted, having driven one and really enjoyed it. And in fact, I'm massively grateful to Navaz for bringing me that car, because without driving it, I really would never have even given the Quattroporte a second thought. It's an oddball car, and deservedly so. There are many more sensible cars that you or I could buy over one of these, and I would totally, completely understand anybody who looked at this and said, James, that's a stupid car, you should have bought anything else. After all, for the money I paid, £26,000, I could have got an M5, which would have been much faster. I could have got a 7 Series, which would have been a lot more luxurious. I could have got an S-Class, same thing again. I could have even got a cheap Range Rover, although I don't know really how good an idea that would have been. In fact, if you look at this car and compare it with, say, an M5, it's got less room in it, older gadgets, and it's slower. There's only one way to get this car to make even the remotest amount of sense. Stop looking at it as a BMW rival or a Merc rival or, heaven forbid, a Lexus rival, and I did consider those too. Instead, you need to look at this car and think of it as a sort of secret after-hours Ferrari project. I can imagine how things went. Fiat told Ferrari, look, go over to Maserati, will you? Go and build a nice, decent, sensible four-door for them that we can sell. And then they turn up and find out they've gone and built something, chucked a Ferrari V8 up the front, an F1 gearbox in it, and gone, yeah, we've done. And Fiat would have looked at them and gone, you haven't just gone and sort of sneakily built a four-door Ferrari, have you? And they'd go, no, don't know what you're talking about. This is far from a perfect car, but when you get this in its element, when you're on a back road doing about 60, 70 mile an hour, something like that, that exhaust is playing its beautiful symphony, this thing is absolutely spectacular. And unlike the Jaguar, I actually really do like looking at it. Originally, I was never really blown away by the looks of the Quattroporte, but the longer you look at it, you realise there's not a bad angle on this car. I kind of like the slightly subdued grey, which is just a bit nicer and different to black or silver. I love the interior specification, and I've already done about 1,000 miles in this car. It's drunk a lot of fuel. Ferrari V8s will do that, but I do really, really love it. So that is a brief introduction to my new daily. What do you think? Inspired or awful. There were other cars I could have chosen, and tell me, what would you have got in my position? I thought about the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, but it was too much money, didn't have a sunroof, I was worried it'd be a little bit too firm, and I do doubt the reliability of the Giulia. He says, standing in front of his Maserati. I have already had this car inspected by Aldous AV Engineering, and I'm happy to say it actually got a very clean bill of health. I was concerned there'd be issues, but in fact, no, this is a good one. You're free to place your bets and see how long it'll take until this completely ruins me, but for now, I'm generally pretty happy with it. There'll be more videos on this pretty soon. It's going to be a constant companion, I hope, for a while. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.